Living in a neighborhood with a homeowners association means following certain rules, keeping your lawn neat, respecting quiet hours, maybe painting your fence an approved color. But what happened to me went far beyond reasonable community standards. It was a quiet Thursday morning when everything changed. I was enjoying my coffee on the back porch, watching the morning mist rise off our beautiful man-made lake, when I heard footsteps on my front walkway. A formal envelope waited on my doorstep. Thick paper, official HOA letterhead, hand-delivered like some kind of royal proclamation. I opened it, expecting maybe a reminder about the annual meeting or new parking guidelines. Instead, I found something that made my heart skip a beat. Formal violation notice. Excessive control of community water resources. Monthly fine, $1,500 until issue is resolved. My hands actually trembled as I read it again and again. Excessive control of water? Resources? How could someone have too much water on their own property? You see, our family home sits on the edge of this gorgeous lake that's been here for decades, long before our HOA even existed. My grandfather, God rest his soul, helped dig that lake back in the 1950s. Our property deed, signed and sealed, gives us partial water rights and responsibility for the small dam that feeds the creek running through our neighborhood. That dam isn't just a structure, it's a piece of our family history. My grandfather taught me how to maintain it, how to regulate the water flow to keep the lake healthy for everyone's enjoyment. For 40 years, I've been its faithful caretaker, but our HOA president, a woman I'll call Mrs. Wilson, had decided that my legal water rights were somehow unfair to the community. The real reason? She wanted to host fancy fundraising events by the shoreline, and my careful water management meant she couldn't manipulate the lake levels for her elaborate parties. Instead of having a respectful conversation with me, neighbor to neighbor, she chose to fine me into submission. I spent the weekend researching, gathering every document that proved my family's legal water rights. Property deeds, county records, even my grandfather's original construction permits. I was nervous, but determined as I walked into that next HOA meeting. The community center was packed. Mrs. Wilson sat at the head table like she was presiding over a courtroom, her perfectly styled hair and designer suit making her look every inch the authority figure she believed herself to be. When public comment time arrived, I stood up, my folder of documents in hand. Mrs. Wilson, I'd like to address this fine you've sent me about the water rights. She looked at me with that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Of course, Mr. Henderson. We're all friends here, trying to do what's best for our wonderful community. I spread my documents on the table. These papers prove that my family has held legal water rights to this property since 1953. The dam is private property. It's maintained at my own expense for decades. This fine has no legal basis. The room went quiet. I could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their folding chairs. Mrs. Wilson's smile grew colder. Mr. Henderson, I understand you feel attached to your grandfather's old project, but times change. How? Our community has grown, and we need to think about what's fair for everyone. Surely you can see that one person controlling our beautiful lake isn't very ... neighborly? My chest tightened. She was making me sound selfish when I'd been caring for this lake longer than she'd even lived in our neighborhood. Ma'am, with respect, this isn't about being neighborly. This is about property rights that are legally documented and have been honored for 70 years. She waved her hand dismissively. Well, Mr. Henderson, if you want to make this difficult, that's your choice. But I think you'll find that community cooperation goes both ways. The threat was clear. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to end with reasonable conversation. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation escalated in ways I never could have imagined. More fines arrived, one claiming I was guilty of environmental resource hoarding, another accusing me of interfering with community wellness. The total, on paper, climbed to nearly $10,000, but the fines were just the beginning. HOA board members and their friends started walking the edges of my property, taking pictures of my dam, my boat dock, even my garden shed. They claimed they were documenting safety concerns. The stress was affecting my sleep, my appetite. My wife, Sarah, watched me grow more frustrated each day. Honey, maybe we should just call our lawyer, she suggested one evening, as I stared at another threatening letter. It shouldn't have to come to that, I replied. This is America. People shouldn't be able to steal your property rights just because they want to throw fancier parties. Mrs. Wilson filed a formal complaint with the county, claiming my dam was unsafe and poorly maintained. The inspector who came out was a kind man named Pete who'd been checking dams in our county for 20 years. Mr. Henderson, he said, shaking his head as he completed his inspection. This is one of the best maintained private dams I've seen. Whoever reported this was either seriously misinformed or deliberately wasting county resources. His official report confirmed what I already knew. My dam was safe, well maintained, and completely up to code. But Mrs. Wilson wasn't finished. A week later, I received her next move, a formal announcement about the annual community gala to be held on the public lawn directly below my dam. The letter emphasized that this was a community-wide celebration, and that all neighbors are expected to support our fundraising efforts. Reading between the lines was easy. She wanted me to lower the water level so her rented dock could sit perfectly at the shoreline for her fancy party. She was trying to force me to manage my water rights for her benefit. I didn't respond to her letter. But I had an idea forming, one that would teach her a lesson about who really controlled those waters. The morning of Mrs. Wilson's gala dawned bright and clear. From my back porch, I watched the setup begin. Professional caterers, elegant white tents, gorgeous floral arrangements that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. String quartet arrived and began tuning there. Instruments, Mrs. Wilson strutted around in a wide-brimmed hat that probably cost $200. Directing workers like she was coordinating a royal wedding. Everything had to be perfect for her wealthy donors and board supporters. Around noon, as guests began arriving in their luxury cars, Mrs. Wilson looked up toward my house. She actually had the audacity to wave at me with a smug little smile, as if to say, "See? I got my party regardless of you." That's when I decided it was time for a lesson in respect, and in who actually controlled this lake. You see? The dam my grandfather built is a simple but effective system, a series of metal. Gates can be opened or closed to control how much water flows from the lake into the creek below. Normally, I adjust them gradually, keeping the water level steady for fishing and wildlife. But that day, I walked down to the dam with a different purpose. The party was in full swing, classical music drifting across the water. The clink of champagne glasses, laughter echoing off the surface. Mrs. Wilson's guests were dressed to the nines. Posed along the shoreline like they were at some exclusive resort, I reached for the heavy wheel that controls the main gate. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was firm. If Mrs. Wilson wanted to test who really managed this water, I'd give her a demonstration she'd never forget. I gave the wheel one slow, deliberate turn. At first, nothing dramatic happened, just the familiar sound of water rushing through the gate. But then, as I continued opening it, the lake level began dropping noticeably. Within minutes, the elegant dock Mrs. Wilson had rented started tilting. Awkwardly, as the water receded, guests began pointing and murmuring. The classical quartet faltered in their performance. Mrs. Wilson noticed the commotion and looked around frantically. Then she spotted me at the dam. Her face went white, then red with fury. "What are you doing?" She shouted across the water, her voice cracking with panic. I didn't answer. Instead, I gave the wheel another firm turn. This time, a powerful surge of water roared out of the gate, thundering down the creek like nature's own fire hose. The shoreline dropped another 2 feet in minutes. What had been an elegant lakeside venue became a muddy disaster zone. Women in high heels found themselves stuck in the soft ground. Waiters slipped and scattered fancy hors d'oeuvres across the grass. The beautiful floral arrangements tilted sideways as their stands sank into the mud. Then, as if Mother Nature herself wanted to make a point, a gust of wind caught one of the white tents and sent it tumbling straight into the muck, splattering Mrs. Wilson's pristine outfit with mud from head to toe. The annual community gala was over by the time I closed the gate and the water level stabilized. Mrs. Wilson's exclusive fundraiser looked like the aftermath of a natural disaster. Guests trudged to their cars with ruined shoes and muddy clothes, demanding refunds. The musicians packed up their instruments in shocked silence. Mrs. Wilson stood alone in the middle of it all, her expensive hat crooked, her designer dress stained with lake mud, her face a mask of humiliated rage. "You'll pay for this." At me from across the water, "I'll sue you for everything you own." But we both knew she couldn't. I had legal water rights. The county had confirmed my dam was safe and properly maintained. I hadn't broken a single law. If anything, I'd done exactly what I was supposed to do, manage the water flow as the legal rights holder. The aftermath was swift and beautiful. Neighbors who'd been quietly suffering under Mrs. Wilson's authoritarian rule for years began approaching me, some clapping me on the back, others whispering their thanks. Several board members resigned the following week, unwilling to continue supporting her increasingly unreasonable demands. Within a month, Mrs. Wilson's reputation in our community was in ruins. She'd spent thousands on her failed gala, lost the support of her inner circle, and become the laughingstock of the neighborhood association network. As for me, I kept my dam, my water rights, and my peace of mind. Every morning when I step onto my porch and look at that beautiful lake, I smile, remembering the day I taught a bully that respect isn't something you can find people into giving you. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from lawyers or courts. Sometimes it comes from standing up for what's right, even when it means getting your hands a little dirty, or in this case, getting someone else's designer dress a little muddy. The lake is more beautiful than ever, and our neighborhood is finally learning what real community cooperation looks like, the kind built on mutual respect, not threats and intimidation.